I want to interrupt your regular scheduled programming to bring you a message about your programming. And if you're not aware of the fact that there is programming and you are being actively programmed, then this message probably isn't for you. But for those of us who are aware and we're trying to figure out like how to run the anti-program or like, just not fall prey to the system, it helps to be able to see it. Now, for a long time, I think we've all been able to see the fact that they separate us out by race, religion, color, all that good stuff. Countries and where you were born, those are all pretty obvious. But I think the one that's really kicking us in the ass that we're not quite so aware of is the fact that they have separated us out by generations. Yeah, you've got your Z generation, your X generation, and your boomers and all this other stuff. When I was a kid, we didn't know about any of that kind of stuff. In fact, it wasn't until my kids were, I think, graduating high school before I started realizing that I was being used more and more. This whole, what generation are you from? And I've watched, by hanging out with the old folks and hanging out with the young folks, I'm kind of right there in the middle. I've seen that the programming, the music, the entertainment, it's all catered. Catered to the certain generation. And there's an underlying message that those generations that are older or younger can't be trusted. Yeah. They're out of touch. They're not smart. They're lazy. They're entitled. Goes both ways. Right? Old people think that of the young people think of the old. Meanwhile, you've got parents struggling to find daycare that they can trust, support, that they can rely on. You've got kids that are struggling to, identify themselves in a world that is more and more asking them to identify themselves. They're just not fitting in. You've got old people that are dying alone in, these care centers, taking with them a treasure trove of information and knowledge that nobody bothers to get out of them because we've all been convinced that, they're just dopey old senile boomers. And the boomers don't really, go after, relationships with these kids because they're all just a bunch of entitled hooligans. Don't have any respect or appreciation for the United States or for sanctity of anything. And as a result, we've become more and more dependent. Getting all of our social needs and our physical needs are met with the system, with the programming. And so I think if you were looking for a way to run the anti-program, it would be to refuse to do that. And to point it out whenever you see it. That's ageism. That's wrong. That's a program right there, trying to separate the young generation from the older generation, trying to weaken us by breaking that link. By dividing up, the wealth. Not just the wealth, the monetary wealth, but the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of community. Nobody's going to love you more than your grandparents. And yet, grandparents have become, an option that maybe you... And people here in this community are talking about they don't care what's going on because they won't be alive to see it. There are a lot of them that don't plan to leave anything to their kids. Not even a planet. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I would have to say that is definitely a part of the program. That is definitely a tell of the agenda of the system. So, and we'll now return you to your regular scheduled programming.